So increased screen time, there is a lack of social interaction. There are naughty and boisterous toddlers on one hand, and then there are introvert toddlers on the other hand, and of course the low attention span of our little kids. So many solutions, I mean, so many issues, and I hope our specialists who are now on the screen with us will be able to give us some solutions for that. So joining us today are two subject matter experts, child psychologist Kiran Tevtia and Dr. Anita Madan, Curriculum Development Head at Eurokids International. Dr. Anita is responsible for designing content and training in all Eurokids schools pan India for over a decade now. Welcome, Kiran ma'am and Dr. Anita. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us today on this live session.
Hi, Namrita, and good afternoon to all the parents who are watching with a lot of concerns. I'm sure we'll be able to answer all of them.
Thanks, Namrita. It's lovely to be here today. I look forward to be sharing my insights out here. Thank you.
Yes. And I'm sure all our audience members who are watching the show and all the moms who are on the show with us today are looking forward to hearing your thoughts. So, Kiran ma'am, let's start with you. Like you heard, most of the moms who spoke just now, they're echoing that they're doing some form of learning activity with their child, but they're unsure on so many levels. Some can't find enough time in their routines. Others try, but they can't really sustain the attention of the child. As someone who understands a child, requirement from a scientific perspective, how important is education of a young child of say age 2 to 5 years? Is it really that necessary to start now? Being so young, can't the kids just skip 1 year or two for that matter and then start when schools actually physically reopen?
Right. Very, very interesting points which were brought in by all the parents out here. And I loved how the parents are getting more and more creative in engaging the children of this age group. A few things first here, Namrita, that 2 to 5 years is an age when the child is growing in different areas, right from the physical aspect where you start noticing that the height and the weight and other vitals of the child is getting stronger, the child is getting faster, is getting hyperactive, as what we say. Generally, we do not use this word, but yeah, as a parent, we a lot of time label our child that my child is hyperactive. But yes, overall, their activity increases because biologically they need to do a lot of motor skills as well. And their desire to get stimulus, the appropriate stimulus for their mental growth and for their social interaction with people is also very important at this moment, at this critical age of children, that is 0 to 5 years. We have to understand, Namrita, here that the connection, the synapses of the nerve cells, the neurons at this age are growing so fast, they are making connections. In fact, a 2-year-old child can have as much connections as an adult. So it is going through a very rapid stage. And a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, they are making connections, a lot of information when they are not getting enough exposure, it could get pruned off, right? They will lose it. Right. That is why it is important that they get a space where they are able to get enough physical, enough cognitive. Now, if we have to put it under the education set of it, then so be it, but it's more about languages, it's more about high level concepts of reading, concepts of shapes, the curiosity basically, right? Mapping, they're being more curious and mapping the knowledge to it. So this is the stage which is very important, and I loved what Gitika said, as long as we can do all these things with the fun element. That's the beauty of it. So yes, it is a very critical age here.
Great. Thank you so much, Kiran ma'am, for sharing your. So, Kiran ma'am, both of you mentioned growth milestones and the right stimulation at the right time for the child's optimal growth. Can you throw some light on some important growth milestones for kids of the age 2.2 to 5 years? And how does a parent know that the child is ready or not ready for structured learning?
Right. So, Namrita, between 2 to 5 years is generally taken as a single block in the development of the child, as compared to if we say that, okay, by 2 years, the child should have learned, say, 200 words, by 3 years, by 400, by 2000 words. Instead of bracketing like that, it's always good to see that it's a big spectrum, it's a big period that that different children could be growing differently. Some kids could be growing more in the physical side, motor skill side. They are more busy in exploring, manipulating things, satiating their sensory needs. Some other children are looking very carefully at the faces of people and are actually growing their language skills, verbal communication skills. So one thing that I really want to make the parents not be so milestone per age driven, and to feel a little assured that don't worry, by the time the children are like 5 or 6 years, they all kind of converse in many areas. So primary, if you have to look at the areas physically, definitely the child is growing stronger and stronger. That's why we talk about baby proofing. That's why we talk about having the house in a manner where the child gets enough opportunities to move around, especially during the lockdown period when the children are not going outdoors, right? Second thing is about language development. This is very critical stage for the language development skills to be done. So the more exposure we have, especially of face-to-face kind of exposure, more are the chances that the child will be building, apart from non-verbal, the verbal communication as well. Then the social skills, it's very important that the child gets a physical touch from the parents. The child will become more expressive. Slowly, by the time the child is moving from 2 years to 5 years, you will notice the child will also start establishing more control and autonomy, which is completely age appropriate, where the child says no. The no becomes like the favorite word, completely age appropriate, right? So the more
And
we
something
see
that
the
troubles a lot of moms. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's something that troubles a lot of mothers.
yeah, very true, very true. And this is also a beautiful age, 2 to 5, where whatever the child does, the attachment with their immediate caregiver also increases, where they are showing it that, look what I did. They have the sense of pride. So this is another, the social skills. So we are talking about physical, language, social. These are the areas where the children grow at different age. So as long as you can see that each day the child with their own baseline, right, is showing that the child is solving more and more complex ways of doing things, it is all fine. So if today the child in an apple is like coloring it a little, keeping a little bit of whites in the space, slowly the child is increasing their own definition of perfection. That is what, as a parent, you should be observing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kiran ma'am, for explaining that digital medium so well. So, Kiran ma'am, my next question to you is on the same lines of sustaining attention of children. How can parents aid that? How can they make their child sit and be attentive during an online class?
Right. Namrata, a few things first, like beautifully shared by Dr. Madan, that similar to how when you are taking your child, the child is taking first step towards going into a preschool. The child goes through the separation anxiety, the child goes to the stranger anxiety, and there are a lot of children who actually take a month or two also to settle down. Most of the children are fine 15 to 20 days, but there are children who could actually be taking a month or two. So we got to understand that if in the beginning itself we start thinking that, what, my aim, see, parents collaboration is very important at this point of time. One parent, one adult is enough, but one caregiver is required, right? First thing. Secondly, you also have to think in your mind, what problem am I solving? What is my aim? Is my aim to make my child sit through 30 minutes of session? But just imagine, Namrata, if a teacher also starts making this aim, that is my aim that I have to make 15, 20 students sit through the whole 30 minutes, a lot of time the teacher or the parent will think, I failed. Because at this age, it is not possible a lot of times that the child is just seated. A lot of time it is possible child could be standing, could be moving around, even in the traditional school setup. I'm sure Dr. Madan can share a lot on this, but they will be moving around in the classroom. Sometimes they will be coming closer to the blackboard or to where the teacher is sitting, sometimes going away, sometimes to their friend. So there's a lot of movement happening. So just because a child is moving around, it should not give us a feeling that the child is not learning. So a few suggestions which can definitely help the parents is, firstly, preparation, right? Similar to how you prepare for your school, you prepare your child for the school, it is important that a day before, in the night or in the morning, right, you have some kind of preparation. Wow, parents' excitement is infectious, and your role at this point of time is very important. And why I say that, Dr. Madan also shared that some kind of structure, if you introduce at this age, it is good for children. Even if the child is showing the signs that I'm not ready yet, it's okay. The problem, the aim that you are trying to solve, especially this is for the parent, is not I have to make my child sit, but I have to support my child while the concepts are being shown, right? So important is keep the excitement going, like, okay, let's prepare the bag, let's keep the stuff, let's keep your water bottle, let's keep your snacks box, right? All the things which go in a tradition as well, keep the excitement going. Second thing, dear, is in the morning, don't make it a rushed affair. Young children especially are not very good at transitioning. So if you're like pulling your child out and just plopping in front of the screen, not a great idea. So a routine has to be made where the child is like an hour or so has gotten up, had a hug time with you, settle down, looks forward to the class. Very important. Third thing is try to have the same place each day, right? And try to have a bigger screen, because if it is projected on a laptop or on a TV, the best, right? Then the chance of the child feeling immersive, right, in the environment is very high. If you can keep a mobile out there where the child can be seen, but the projection is on the TV, it's a great idea. A few days back, in fact, I was attending a seminar on meditation, and when I projected on the TV, it was very different experience. So you can imagine if it's happening with an adult, children definitely will get benefited by that. Then the fourth thing is try to have the room kind of thing. Now just imagine if in a classroom also all the rooms are open and the children are free to run away from one room to another. It's a very difficult situation. So as a parent, if your aim is just to keep the child in the same room while the class is going on, that's the best. So have a clear speaker, and if the child is able to listen to that, fair enough, the child is learning, don't worry. But give that, as I said, even in a traditional school, you need to give, for some children, 2 weeks of time, for some children, even a month or two, right? But the beauty about it is that while in a graded level, in the graded level of complexity, when our fears are that, is my child learning enough, right? Is he or she getting enough mental stimulus, right? So when you go through a pedagogically certified kind of course, it really it can really make you feel a little more relaxed that yes, my child is learning, right? And lastly, okay, and don't ever drag your child in, okay? If your child is running around and all to make it sit, as I said, that is not the aim. Have a clear speaker and indulge the child. That's perfectly fine. And the last thing is, once the class is done, no matter how the child was in the class, remember the way the traditional setup works, most of the time you will not even know how your child was in the class. So when your child comes back, always say, wow, we had a good time in the class. Have the positivity instead of saying, oh, you again did not finish your work today. Right? So have a positivity, have a welcoming kind of ritual out here. Ki, wow, we finished it. Let's move on to the next one. So more the child sees this happening, more are the chances that the child will will settle down much sooner. And the last thing is, whatever concepts which are shown in the classroom, right? This is an age, that is why this structured helps, because this is the age where the child needs to feel more and more curious. So just imagine if the child sees a ball and the child says red ball and the child says circle, right? Starts attaching more and more attributes to it. Just imagine how complexity in the memory, how complex the information is getting stored. So carry on talking about those concepts throughout the day. So that is what I would suggest would really help the child much more. Thank you.
Kiran, I would like to add one more thing that the parent really needs to do is the attitude of the parent towards the online class. Now, I have young mothers who say, this is not the time that I want to sit in front of the screen. I don't have that much time. It's so boring to sit in front of the screen. And they are, talking to somebody over the phone, which the child is overhearing, and they're saying, oh, it was such a long day today for me. I had to sit with this online class. It was so boring. So the child is learning that this is boring and my mother's not enjoying it, so even I can't enjoy it. So please have this positive attitude towards the class and don't make it one of the checklists that, okay, I have to sit for the class, but enjoy the whole routine of being there with the child. Go back to the days when you really wanted to see what was happening in the school. God has heard you. He's allowing you to see what's happening in the school.
I completely concur that. In fact, we may treat it as the screen time for the child. It can actually be a wonderful connect time for the caregiver with the child during this time. So as
Absolutely.
long as you keep the right expectations, it can work beautifully for the child. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Kiran ma'am and Dr. Anita, for sharing your thoughts. I think it's wonderful. What I've picked up is basically kind of
Yeah, so Anjali, see, I have written a lot of blogs on screen time again, against and for about it. But one thing that we have to understand out here, generally when we think about screen time, we visualize a child who is like sitting like this glumly and just completely like this. Parents are trying to get the traction, their attention. A child is completely ignoring them, right? That's our
right.
image. However, as beautifully put in by Dr. Madan as well, we have to differentiate between different types of screen time. Previously, because there was no such concept of learning through screens, right? So that's why all the screen time was kind of just labeled into one. But we are differentiating between screen time when the child is getting those instant rewards, which become addictive in nature, where the child is clicking on one YouTube, going to another. When the child starts seeing I'm getting bored, right, and the child starts associating that with let me get some screen time and get my dose of dopamine out here. This is, though I would not say the child is okay. I'm talking about online schooling alone out here. I'm not talking about an app, but this particular thing is high on, is though it is passive, it does not give instant dose of reward, but it is high on interactivity, which is what the child needs at this time. With an adult seated out here, with another adult giving an instruction, and child being able to see all the other children, slowly it builds on a little, rather I would say, groundedness and tehrav in the children. So it can actually be very helpful for the children. So this is a time when we should be doing more research. The effect on the eyes, the effect on the addiction level of the child, the effect on, is it really making the child disconnected from the family or actually connected back, right? So we have to differentiate that. Thank you.
Who has who had a concern earlier with the attention span of a child, but I'm sure there have been some solutions given on that. Nandini, would you
Yes,
like to
yes,
share your thoughts?
yes. First of all, thank you for your suggestions. And I really liked the suggestion that creating a positive environment for the child is needed. I really like that. But right now, I have a question. Like, we are a nuclear family, and we have a child, only child right now. My husband and I try to interact with her and play with her as much as time permits. But I have a sense that we are lacking behind human interaction with her, like human interaction or interaction with other child. Like if cousin, friends, they could really help. Can online interaction can really help this in this? What we as a parents can do in this in the same?
Namrata, who would you like to take the question?
It's
Either
open.
like yes, uh, yeah.
Yeah, go for it. Nandini, you had something else to add?
No, no, nothing. Just my concern is that, like, can online interaction really help in this?
Okay.
Right.
So,
So,
Kiran ma'am, if you'd like to take that.
All right, so I'll go ahead. Uh, uh, Nandini, these are unprecedented times. So we cannot assume that whatever was happening before would go as a routine, right? So of course, we'll have to become more creative here, and we'll have to look for newer solutions. And at this point of time, keeping the situation in mind, even when you and your husband, again, as I said, one parent at a time, as compared to if you take a load that both of you are putting it. So balancing it in such a manner. Good thing is a lot of organizations are also understanding, and they do allow the work from home people to have certain kind of flexibility. So if some workaround can be done out there, because 2 to 5 years children definitely need some person with them. Whenever they do something, also they need that cue back that wow, I did a good job out here. So it is a good idea to plan the day in such a manner. But yes, we cannot solve all the problems in such kind of atmosphere. And video calls, again, there are some, I hear a lot of parents, sometimes they say some children are very good at video call with their relatives and all. They are very interactive. Some children actually run away from video calls. Everything is okay. You should not artificially force a child to have video calls with their grandparents. You can make it as a routine and give it as an option. But if the child runs away, fair enough. Give next day, again, call out the child with the same enthusiasm. As Dr. Madan also put in, the parents' attitude is very important, not just in online classes, generally. So even generally, if you start saying, oh, you know what, your maths teacher is not so good, chances are very high that the child will actually stop connecting with the teacher, and whatever little that the child could have still learned, just because the parent rejected that teacher, the learning is going to come down. So your overall, what you are speaking, not just in front of the child, generally when you're speaking to somebody else while the child is around, we need to be a little conscious about it. They do internalize it. Yeah, I hope that answers your.
I'm bringing on Gitika is next, and she has a question too, I'm sure, for our wonderful experts.
First of all, thank you so much, experts. And it has really cleared a lot of doubts. I was having seriously a lot of doubts, regarding this homeschooling, because my girl, she's 2.5-year-old, and she's very shy, very introvert. Okay, so my first concern is, like, she's so much attached to me. She don't wanna, even go to her grandfather. So I wanna ask from you, will this homeschooling, this online schooling, will help in decreasing that separation anxiety? And she's also having strange anxiety. She just ignore people. So will this help? This homeschooling will help to come over this separation anxiety, and to become more familiar, more friendly.
Kiran ma'am, would you like to take that?
Sure. Gitika, with children, one solution is not a panacea for all our problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to understand, before we take something away from the child, we have to give something to the child to replace that thing, right? So
Correct. Yeah.
if you are artificially creating a situation, Gitika, for example, if you know that your child has a separation anxiety, and if you artificially, to test your child or to build those capabilities at this age, if you artificially are sneaking away, or you say, okay, stay more, you are withdrawing yourself, stay more with your grandparent, it will actually increase your child. The chances are there that it will actually increase the clinginess of your child, for the simple matter that your child will not be able to predict when my mother is accessible and when she is not accessible. So
Okay.
my suggestion always is, it's like, as a parent, you are the trapeze. For the trapeze one, you are that net. The more secure the child feels that, yes, I will have my mother whenever I need her, or when I look up, I get a response from her, and whenever she's stepping out, she's telling me, okay, bye, I have to go to whatever chore, right? And first I'm addressing the separation. So even if you have to go out for a shopping without fear that how my child will react, you show the confidence that, dear, I'll be back in half an hour's time, and then you leave because there's another adult there. And when you come back, you come with same confidence. Wow, that's the way we, generally in any kind of, whether it is daycare, whether it is preschool, it is done, that you don't look behind and say, let me have one more last hug or something, right? So, and when you come back, you give all those extra hugs and all. So the child starts associating and getting more safe and secure, and will be fine with that. Coming back to this one, what are you replacing it with? So what typically happens, whether you're leaving the child to a daycare or to a preschool. Now I've been part of a daycare as well for really like as young as 9-month-old children. So what happens is, slowly, once the child has come out of that pain of the separation, slowly the child starts noticing, and of course there are people around who are trained to do that, right? So starts making bonds with those some of the caregivers, or at least one person out there, and then the separation anxiety gets settled. Wow, I have people who will be able to take care of me. It's always about her own self-interest, right? So I really hope that helps to answer your question.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much.
The best. So as a parent, I'd also like to ask the experts one question, which has been, on my mind. And that is, if all of these children are doing online schooling, and now, especially for younger kids, once they start online schooling, will it be difficult for them to go out and go to actual physical school once it resumes? Is there going to be any of those repercussions? If any of you would like to take that question, please.
Um, uh, I would take it first. For 2 to 5 years, and because, as what Dr. Madan also shared, that we all are at the end of the day social animal, right? And we have to understand it is not about screen time for entertainment. In fact, that is also one of the tips, that if you reduce the amount of time that the child is spending on screen for entertainment, you would actually notice that the novelty and the excitement of the child to actually sit through the online class could increase, because the child is not expecting quick reward and instant gratification what the child gets in the otherwise online screen time. So that's another tip out here. So yes, if the moment you will notice, of course, based on the temperament of the child could go through a separation anxiety, which is natural, and suddenly going to the stranger, but they are going to seamlessly blend to that. In fact, they are going to welcome that. In fact, yeah. I hope that helps.
Yes.
I'll let Dr. Madan add on to it, of course.
So children are very adaptable. So adults take longer to adjust to a situation, but children are very, very adaptable. So they'll be more than happy to go back to